Elena Vasquez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she watched the mining machines dig deeper into the red Earth of Kepler 442b. The alien planet had been humanity's prison for 50 years now, ever since the Zeralians came to Earth with their massive ships and advanced weapons. She remembered the stories her grandmother told her about the invasion, how the sky had filled with silver ships the size of cities, how Earth's armies fought bravely but their bullets and missiles barely scratched the alien hulls, how the leaders of every nation had no choice but to surrender when the Zeralians threatened to burn every major city to ash. The Zeralians were tall, thin creatures with gray skin and large black eyes. They wore flowing robes and spoke in musical voices that somehow made their cruelty sound beautiful. They had conquered dozens of worlds across the galaxy, and Earth was just another prize to add to their empire. But the Zeralians were smart about conquest. They did not kill all the humans or destroy Earth completely. Instead, they studied humanity and found them useful. Humans were good with their hands, could solve problems quickly, and worked well together. The aliens decided humans would make excellent servants, so they took millions of humans from Earth and spread them across their empire. Some went to factory worlds to build machines. Others went to farm planets to grow food. Elena and her family were sent to mining worlds like this one to dig up the rare metals the Zeralians needed for their technology. Elena had been only 12 years old when they brought her here. Now she was 37 and in charge of work, Crew 7, managing 200 humans who operated the big mining machines. The Zeralians called her a maintenance supervisor, but she was really just another slave with a fancy title. The Zeralian overseer, Lord Vexthul, glided over on his floating platform. His translator box crackled as he spoke. Supervisor Vasquez? The output from Section C has dropped by 3% this week. Explain. Elena kept her face calm even though she wanted to punch him. The drill bit on Machine 7 is wearing out. It needs replacement parts. Then replace it, Vexthul said, with the tone adults used when talking to stupid children. That is why you exist, human, to maintain our equipment. Yes, Lord Vexthul, Elena replied, bowing her head like she was supposed to. I will see to it immediately. The Zeralian floated away without another word. Elena watched him go, her hands clenched into fists. She had learned long ago not to show anger in front of the aliens. They would punish not just her but her entire crew. But Elena had secrets the Zeralians did not know about. When the work shift ended, Elena walked through the human living quarters. The buildings were simple concrete blocks with small rooms, just enough for workers to eat and sleep before going back to the mines. The Zeralians made sure humans stayed healthy and fed, but only because sick workers were less productive. Elena stopped at Building 7 and knocked on the door in a special pattern. 3 short knocks, then 2 long ones, then 1 short. The door opened to reveal Marcus Chen, a thin man with graying hair who had once been a professor on Earth. Come in quickly, Marcus said, looking around to make sure no one was watching. Elena stepped inside and Marcus closed the door behind her. The room looked normal from the outside, but Marcus had made changes the Zeralians could not see. Behind a loose wall panel was a small workshop filled with tools and electronic parts. Any word from the other cells? Elena asked. Marcus nodded and pulled out a device that looked like a broken mining tool communicator. But Elena knew it was really a secret radio Marcus had built using stolen Zeralian components. For the past 5 years, resistance groups on different worlds had been talking to each other, sharing information and making plans. I got messages from 3 systems today, Marcus said quietly. The cell on Proxima Station says they have 50 fighters ready. The group on New Jakarta has been stockpiling weapons in the abandoned mine shafts, and the team on Europa says they figured out how to hack Zeralian security codes. Elena felt a spark of hope in her chest. For so long, humans had seemed helpless against their alien masters. But slowly, quietly, they had been fighting back. Not with big battles or dramatic speeches, but with patience and cleverness. The resistance had started small. A few humans who remembered how to fight from Earth's old wars, engineers who understood how machines worked, scientists who could study Zeralian technology and find its weaknesses. Over the decades, They had grown into a network that spanned dozens of worlds. The Xeralians never suspected anything. To them, humans were just useful animals, smart enough to operate complex equipment, but too primitive to be a real threat. They saw human workers fixing their machines and building their structures, and never realized those same workers were learning everything they could about alien technology. "What about the weapons?" Elena asked. Marcus smiled and moved another wall panel. Behind it was a space filled with metal objects that looked like mining tools, but Elena knew better. Marcus and his team had been secretly building weapons for years, using stolen Xeralian metal and power cells. They looked harmless enough to fool casual inspection, but could be quickly assembled into plasma rifles and energy grenades. "We have enough to arm 300 fighters," Marcus said. "The other cells have been doing the same thing. When the time comes, we will not be defenseless." Elena picked up one of the fake tools and felt its weight. It was heavier than it looked, and she could see the carefully hidden weapon components inside. The Xeralians thought they were so smart, but they had made a crucial mistake. They had put their most dangerous enemies in charge of maintaining their most important systems. Every human worker knew how Xeralian machines functioned. They knew where the power cables ran, which systems controlled the life support, and how to access the computer networks. They had been forced to learn these things to do their jobs, but knowledge was a weapon the aliens had given them without realizing it. "How much longer?" Elena asked. Marcus checked his hidden calendar. "The signal should come within the next month. All the cells are ready. We have weapons, we have targets picked out, and we know exactly how to hit them where it hurts most." Elena nodded. After 50 years of slavery, humanity was finally ready to fight back. But this would not be like the invasion of Earth. This time, humans had the element of surprise. This time, they understood their enemy's technology. This time, they would not lose. She put the weapon back in its hiding place and prepared to leave. Tomorrow, she would go back to supervising the mining operation, bowing to Lord Vexthul and pretending to be a loyal servant. But soon, very soon, the Xeralians would discover what happened when you underestimated the human spirit. Elena walked back to her own quarters through the quiet streets of the human sector. Above her, the alien stars shone cold and distant. But she was not afraid of the darkness anymore. She had learned something important during her years of slavery. Sometimes the best place to hide a revolution was right under the enemy's nose. Dr. James Chen had not always been a maintenance worker. Back on Earth, he had taught physics at one of the best universities in the world. He had published papers about energy fields and weapons technology that other scientists respected. But the Xeralians did not care about his education. To them, he was just another human who could fix broken machines. For 23 years, James had worked in the power generation facility that supplied energy to the entire Kepler system. The Xeralians had put him there because he understood electrical systems better than most humans. They thought they were being smart by using his skills to keep their machines running. They had no idea they were giving him access to the most advanced technology in their empire. James spent his days crawling through maintenance tunnels, checking power cables and replacing worn-out components. But while he worked, he studied everything. He memorized circuit patterns, analyzed energy frequencies, and slowly began to understand how Xeralian technology really functioned. The aliens were proud of their defensive shields. These energy barriers could stop any known weapon, from primitive bullets to advanced plasma beams. Xeralian ships and buildings were protected by shield generators that made them nearly invincible. It was the main reason they had conquered so many worlds so easily. But James had discovered something interesting about those shields. He was deep in Maintenance Tunnel 7 when he made his breakthrough. A power coupling had failed, and he was installing a replacement when he noticed something odd about the energy readings. The shield generator was cycling through different frequencies, adjusting its protection based on what threats it detected. James pulled out his scanner and pretended to test the repaired connection, but actually, he was recording the shield's frequency patterns. Over several weeks, he gathered data every time he worked near the generators. Slowly, a picture began to form. The Xeralian shields were incredibly advanced, but they had been designed to stop Xeralian weapons. They automatically adjusted to block energy signatures from known threats in their database. Earth weapons, plasma, cannons from conquered species, even exotic radiation weapons from long-dead civilizations. The shields had learned to stop them all, but there was a gap in their knowledge. The shields did not know how to block weapons that had never been fired at them before. James shared his discovery with the other resistance scientists through their secret communication network. Dr. Sarah Kim on the industrial world of Vega 7 was also a former Earth professor. She had been forced to work in the weapons manufacturing plants where Xeralians built their plasma rifles and energy cannons. If we can build weapons with completely different energy signatures, Sarah transmitted, the shields will not recognize them as threats. But how do we build new weapons without the Xeralians noticing? Asked Dr. Martinez from the shipyard facility on Titan Station. James had been thinking about that problem for months. The answer lay in the very work they were forced to do every day. We build them using their own components, but in combinations they have never seen before. The plan was dangerous but brilliant. The resistance scientists would use their access to Xeralian facilities to steal small amounts of materials over long periods, power cells from the energy plants, metal alloys from the manufacturing centers, computer chips from the communication arrays. Individually, none of these thefts would be noticed, but together, they would give the resistance everything needed to build weapons. The stolen materials were smuggled to hidden workshops in abandoned sections of mining facilities and space stations, places where humans worked alone and Xeralian overseers rarely bothered to visit. There, teams of engineers and technicians began the slow process of reverse engineering alien technology. James worked closely with Elena Vasquez, who ran the mining operation on Kepler 442b. Her facility had large underground areas that had been mined out and forgotten. Perfect places to hide weapon manufacturing equipment. The first prototypes are ready for testing, Elena told James during one of their secret meetings. She led him through a maze of abandoned tunnels to a hidden chamber carved out of the rock. Inside, human workers were carefully assembling weapons that looked like nothing the Xeralians had ever seen. The rifles were sleek and black, built from a combination of human engineering and alien materials. They fired concentrated bursts of plasma that operated on completely different frequencies from standard Xeralian weapons. The energy grenades looked like simple metal spheres, but contained power cells that could overload alien electronics. Have you tested them against actual Xeralian shields? James asked. Marcus Chen, Elena's second-in-command, nodded grimly. We managed to steal a small shield generator during a maintenance operation. The results were better than we hoped. Led them to another chamber where a Xeralian shield generator hummed quietly in a testing frame. Marcus picked up one of the new weapons and aimed it at the shield. When he pulled the trigger, the plasma beam passed right through the energy barrier like it was not even there. James felt his heart race with excitement. After 50 years of slavery, humans finally had weapons that could hurt their captors. But weapons were only part of the plan. The Resistance had also been studying Xeralian military tactics and strategy. The aliens were excellent fighters when everything went according to their plans. Their armies moved with precision, their fleets operated in perfect formation, and their commanders followed strategies that had worked for centuries. That was also their weakness. They are too organized, explained Colonel Morrison, a former Earth military officer who now worked as a cargo supervisor. They expect their enemies to fight the same way they do. Organized, predictable. Following the rules of warfare, they understand. Morrison had spent years watching Xeralian security forces during their training exercises. He noticed that they always responded to threats in the same patterns. When attacked from the front, they would fall back to defensive positions. When flanked, they would regroup and counterattack. When outnumbered, they would call for reinforcements and wait for support. But what if we do not fight the way they expect? Morrison asked the other resistance leaders. What if we attack from directions they have not prepared for? What if we use their own infrastructure against them? The more James learned about human preparations, the more confident he became. The Resistance was not planning a traditional war with armies and battles. Instead, they were preparing something the Xeralians had never faced before, a coordinated uprising by their own servants. Humans maintained the power plants that supplied energy to Xeralian cities. They operated the computers that controlled space traffic and communications. They built and repaired the weapons the alien military used. They had access to every critical system in the Xeralian Empire. When the signal comes, Elena said during their final planning meeting, we will not just fight them. We will turn their entire civilization against itself. James looked around the chamber at the faces of his fellow humans, engineers who had built secret weapons, soldiers who had trained in hidden camps, scientists who had learned to exploit alien weaknesses, all of them servants in the eyes of their masters, all of them ready to show the Xeralians the price of underestimating humanity. The network was complete. Weapons were stockpiled. Plans were in place. After 5 decades of careful preparation, the human resistance was ready to strike back. The Xeralians still believed their servants were harmless. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. The signal came at exactly midnight, Galactic Standard Time. Elena felt her hidden communicator vibrate against her wrist with the pattern all resistance fighters had memorized. 3 long pulses, then 5 short ones, then 3 long again. After 50 years of waiting, it was time. Elena rolled out of bed and dressed quickly in her work clothes. To anyone watching, she would look like a maintenance supervisor heading out for an emergency repair call. But hidden under her jacket was one of the new plasma weapons Marcus had built, and strapped to her belt were 3 energy grenades disguised as diagnostic tools. She walked through the quiet streets of the human sector toward the mining facility. Other workers were also moving through the darkness, but they ignored each other as planned. The Xeralians monitored human activity, and large groups gathering at night would attract attention. Elena reached the facility and used her access codes to enter the main building. The Xeralian guards barely looked at her. They were used to human supervisors working odd hours to fix broken equipment. They had no idea this human was about to turn their entire world upside down. In the control room, Elena found Marcus already at work. He had connected his hidden computer to the facility's main systems and was rapidly typing commands. On his screen, Elena could see the power grid for the entire mining complex. "Are you ready?" Marcus asked without looking up from his work. "All teams are in position," Elena replied. Through her earpiece, she could hear quiet confirmations from resistance fighters throughout the facility. "How long do you need?" 2 more minutes to upload the virus, Marcus said. "Once it activates, their security systems will think everything is normal, while we take control of the actual equipment." Elena watched the countdown on Marcus's screen while listening to reports from other cells across the galaxy. The uprising was happening simultaneously on 12 different worlds. Space stations, mining facilities, manufacturing plants, and military bases were all being attacked at the same time by their own human workers. "Upload complete," Marcus announced. "We now control power, communications, and defensive systems. The Xeralians have no idea what is about to hit them." Elena activated her communicator and spoke the words that would change everything. "All units, this is command. Operation Sunrise is now active. Show them what servants can do." Across the mining facility, humans threw off their disguises and revealed their weapons. Elena's team moved swiftly through the main building, stunning surprised Xeralian overseers before they could raise an alarm. The aliens were so shocked to see their servants attacking them that most barely had time to react. Lord Vexthul was in his private office when Elena's team reached him. The tall alien was reviewing production reports when the door burst open, and 3 humans entered with weapons drawn. "What is the meaning of this?" Vexthul demanded in his musical voice. "You are servants, you cannot threaten your masters." Elena pointed her plasma rifle at the alien's chest. "We were never your servants," she said calmly. "We were your prisoners. There is a difference." The plasma beam passed right through Vexthul's personal shield and struck him in the center of his torso. The Xeralian collapsed with a look of complete disbelief on his face. He died still unable to understand how a human weapon had penetrated his defenses. While Elena's team secured the administration building, other resistance fighters were taking control of the facility's most important systems. The mining lasers, normally used to cut through rock, were turned toward the sky where Xeralian patrol ships circled the planet. The huge industrial machines were converted into weapons that could punch holes through starship hulls. On her communicator, Elena could hear similar reports from around the galaxy. "Proxima Station is ours," reported Captain Sullivan. "We took the docking bay and turned the cargo launchers into missile batteries." "Vega 7 manufacturing complex secured," came another voice. "We are using the weapon production line to build more rifles for our forces." "Titan Station shipyard under human control," announced Colonel Morrison. "We have captured 6 Xeralian warships and are turning them against the remaining fleet." The Xeralian response was swift but confused. Their military commanders had never faced a situation where their own infrastructure was being used against them. Emergency protocols called for defensive actions that assumed attacks would come from outside enemy forces, not from within their own facilities. Admiral Kethvar commanded the Xeralian fleet in the Kepler system. When the first reports of human uprising reached his flagship, he was drinking cha with his senior officers and discussing trade routes. The idea of servants rebelling seemed so impossible that his first reaction was to assume the reports were mistakes. "Surely the humans are not actually attacking," Kethvar said to his communications officer. "Perhaps there has been an accident with the equipment they were repairing." But as more reports came in, the truth became undeniable. Humans across multiple worlds were rising up simultaneously, using weapons that could penetrate Xeralian shields, and tactics that their military had never encountered before. "Order all ground forces to secure the mining facilities," Kethvar commanded. "These servants must be reminded of their place." But when the Xeralian shuttles approached the mining complex, they were met with a devastating surprise. The humans had turned the facility's defensive systems against them. Mining lasers designed to cut through solid rocks sliced through shuttle hulls like they were made of paper. Industrial manipulator arms normally used to move heavy equipment grabbed Xeralian aircraft and crushed them. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, his voice filled with panic, "we are losing ships to mining equipment. The humans have somehow converted civilian machinery into military weapons." Kethvar stared at his display screen in disbelief. His forces were being destroyed by the very facilities they were trying to protect. The humans were using everything against them. Power plants overloading to create electromagnetic pulses, cargo containers launched at high speed like kinetic missiles. Even the life support systems were being turned into weapons by flooding Xeralian positions with toxic gases. "How is this possible?" Kethvar demanded. "They are servants. They maintain our equipment. They do not know how to fight." His intelligence officer pulled up files on human history. "Admiral, the records show that before we conquered them, humans were constantly at war with each other. They have extensive experience with combat and military technology." Kethvar had never bothered to study human warfare. Like most Xeralians, he assumed that primitive species had nothing to teach their advanced civilization. But now he was learning the hard way that humans understood conflict in ways the Xeralians had never imagined. The human tactics were chaotic and unpredictable. They attacked from multiple directions at once, used civilian equipment as weapons, and seemed to have no respect for the proper rules of warfare. When Xeralian forces tried to regroup, they found that humans had sabotaged their communication systems. When they attempted to call for reinforcements, they discovered that the humans controlled the transportation networks. Elena watched the battle from the mining facility's command center. Through the security cameras, she could see Xeralian soldiers running in confusion as their own base turned against them. Power systems failed at critical moments, doors locked and trapped enemy forces in dead-end corridors, and defensive turrets that should have protected the aliens instead fired on them. "Status report from all units," Elena commanded. "Administration, building secured," reported Team Alpha. "All Xeralian overseers captured or eliminated." "Power plant under our control," announced Team Beta. "We can now control electricity for the entire complex." "Mining operations converted to defensive positions," said Team Gamma. "The big lasers are now pointing at enemy ships." Elena smiled grimly as she watched a Xeralian battleship try to approach the planet's surface. The ship's shields were designed to stop attacks from other warships, but they could not handle the industrial-strength mining laser that struck them from below. The alien vessel's hull cracked open like an egg, and the ship crashed into the desert in a ball of flames. "This is for 50 years of slavery," Elena whispered as more enemy ships fell from the sky. The first phase of humanity's revenge had begun. But Elena knew this was only the beginning. The real test would come when the Xeralians recovered from their shock and sent their full military might to crush the rebellion. She was looking forward to showing them what humans could do when they were truly angry. 3 days after the uprising began, Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship and stared at reports that should have been impossible. 12 star systems under Xeralian control had fallen to human rebels in coordinated attacks. Binio, facilities, manufacturing plants, space stations, and military bases were all now under human control. The high command on the capital world of Xeralian Prime had sent him a simple message: crush the rebellion immediately, or face execution for allowing servants to defeat the Empire's military. Kethvar had assembled the largest fleet in Xeralian history, 200 warships carrying 50,000 soldiers and the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Surely this primitive uprising would collapse when faced with the full might of Xeralian military power. "Set course for the Kepler system," Kethvar ordered. "We will start by recapturing the mining worlds, then move on to the other rebel positions. These humans will learn what happens when servants forget their place." But Kethvar did not know that the humans were ready for him. Elena stood in the command center of Nexus Station, a massive trading hub that orbited the gas giant Kepler 438b. The station was one of the most important facilities in the sector, handling cargo shipments between dozens of worlds. Before the uprising, 50,000 humans had worked there as dock workers, engineers, and maintenance crews. Now those same humans had turned the civilian facility into the most dangerous fortress in the galaxy. "Admiral Kethvar's fleet will arrive in 6 hours, reported Dr. Martinez, who was monitoring enemy communications from his position at the sensor array. 200 ships, just like we expected." Elena nodded as she studied the tactical display. The Xeralian fleet was approaching in perfect formation, their ships arranged in the precise geometric patterns that had won them victories across the galaxy. But Elena and her team had spent months preparing for this moment. "Are the cargo launchers ready?" Elena asked. Captain Hassan, a former Earth Navy officer who now commanded the station's defenses, grinned fiercely. "All 40 launchers are loaded and targeted. The Xeralians are about to learn what happens when you turn freight equipment into artillery." Nexus Station's cargo launchers were designed to send supply containers to ships throughout the system. They used magnetic acceleration to launch massive cargo pods at incredibly high speeds, but the humans had made some modifications to the system. Instead of supply containers, the launchers now held solid metal projectiles weighing several tons each. When fired at full power, these projectiles would travel at nearly 10% of light speed. No shield in the Xeralian military could stop something moving that fast. Elena walked through the station's corridors, checking on the preparations. In the docking bays, human engineers had converted civilian cargo ships into fighters, armed with the new plasma weapons. The maintenance tunnels had been turned into fortified positions where resistant soldiers waited with captured Xeralian equipment. "How many fighters do we have ready?" Elena asked Colonel Morrison, who was coordinating the mobile forces. 300 ships of various sizes," Morrison replied. "Most are just cargo haulers and passenger transports, but we have armed them with everything we could build or steal. They will not win any beauty contests, but they can fight." Elena smiled at the thought of Xeralian military officers facing an attack by garbage scows and passenger shuttles. The aliens were so focused on proper military protocol that they would probably be confused by the unconventional fleet. But the real surprise was still hidden in the station's lower levels. Marcus Chen had been working for months on a special project in the deep maintenance sections of Nexus Station. Using stolen Xeralian technology and human engineering, he had built something no one in the galaxy had ever seen before. A weapon that could turn an entire space station into a massive gun. "The main projector is ready," Marcus reported. "We have tapped directly into the station's fusion reactors and channeled all that power into a single directed energy beam. It will only fire once before the system overloads, but that one shot should be enough. Elena looked through the observation window at Marcus's creation. It looked like a huge cannon that ran through the entire length of the station. Its barrel pointed directly at the approaching Xeralian fleet. When fired, it would release more energy than most planets produced in a year. "Save it for their flagship," Elena ordered. "Let Admiral Kethavar see what human ingenuity can accomplish." As the Xeralian fleet approached Nexus Station, Kethavar felt confident in his overwhelming superiority. His ships outnumbered the humans by more than 10 to 1, and his weapons were far more advanced than anything the primitive rebels could have built. "Sensors show approximately 300 small craft around the station," his tactical officer reported. "Mostly converted civilian vessels. They pose no significant threat to our formation." Kethavar nodded dismissively. "Order the first wave. To destroy those pathetic ships quickly. I want this rebellion crushed within the hour." But as his fleet moved into attack position, something unexpected happened. Instead of waiting to be destroyed, the human ships scattered in all directions, like a swarm of insects. They did not try to form battle lines or follow any recognizable tactical doctrine. Instead, they darted between the larger Xeralian warships, firing plasma beams and launching small missiles before disappearing behind asteroids and debris fields. "Sir, the enemy ships are not engaging us properly," complained the weapons officer. "They attack and then run away before we can respond. This is not how space battles are supposed to work." Kethavar frowned as he watched the chaotic battle on his display screens. His ships were designed to fight other fleets in organized formations, but these humans seemed to have no respect for military tradition. They attacked weak points, retreated when faced with superior firepower, and kept changing their tactics in ways that made no sense. "Focus fire on the space station," Kethavar ordered. "Once we destroy their main base, these cowardly hit-and-run attacks will stop." But as his fleet turned toward Nexus Station, Elena triggered the first phase of her defense plan. "Fire the cargo launchers," she commanded. 40 metal projectiles, each weighing several tons, launched from Nexus Station at incredible speed. The Xeralian shields designed to stop energy weapons could not slow down the solid metal rams. The projectiles punched through ship hulls like bullets through paper, destroying 12 warships in the first salvo. "What kind of weapon was that?" Kethavar demanded as he watched his ships explode. "It appears to be some kind of kinetic bombardment system," his science officer replied, studying the sensor data. "But sir, those projectiles were moving at nearly relativistic speeds. How could a civilian facility generate that much power?" Kethavar did not have time to figure out the answer. More projectiles were already launching from the station, and his fleet was taking heavy casualties from weapons that should not have existed. "All ships return fire on the station immediately," Kethavar ordered. But when his ships tried to target Nexus Station, they discovered another unpleasant surprise. The humans had covered the entire facility with sensor jamming equipment built from stolen Xeralian technology. The alien targeting systems could not get a clear lock on the station through the electronic interference. "Sir, our weapons cannot penetrate the jamming field," reported the tactical officer. "The humans have somehow turned our own technology against us." Elena watched the confusion in the enemy fleet and felt a savage satisfaction. For 50 years, humans had been forced to learn Xeralian technology by maintaining and repairing it. Now they were using that knowledge to show their former masters exactly how vulnerable their advanced systems really were. "Time for the main event," Elena announced. "Marcus, fire the station cannon." In the deep levels of Nexus Station, Marcus Chen activated his masterpiece. The massive weapon drew power from every fusion reactor on the station, channeling enough energy to supply a small planet into a single devastating beam. The lance of pure energy struck Admiral Kethavar's flagship directly in the center of its hull. The ship's shields, designed to stop conventional weapons, simply vanished under the incredible assault. The flagship cracked in half and exploded in a ball of plasma that could be seen from 3 star systems away. In the space of 30 minutes, the most powerful Xeralian fleet in history had been reduced to scattered wreckage by a civilian space station crewed by former slaves. As Elena watched the surviving enemy ships retreat in panic, she smiled coldly. The Zeralians had wanted to see what happened when servants forgot their place. Now they were learning the hard way that humans had never forgotten theirs. They had simply been waiting for the right moment to take it back. The news of Admiral Kethvar's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The most powerful fleet in Zeralian history had been destroyed by human rebels using converted civilian equipment. On worlds throughout the Empire, other enslaved species began to whisper that maybe the Zeralians were not as invincible as they claimed. Elena stood in the command center of her flagship, the former Zeralian warship Eternal Glory, now renamed Human Vengeance. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. These were the same people who had once repaired Zeralian machines as slaves. Now they operated the most advanced warship in the rebel fleet. Status report from all sectors, Elena commanded. She wore the uniform of an admiral now, a rank the human resistance had given her after the victory at Nexus Station. Kepler system fully under our control, reported Captain Hassan. The remaining Zeralian forces have either surrendered or fled to other systems. Proxima Station is manufacturing new weapons at full capacity, added Dr. Martinez. We now have enough plasma rifles to arm 20,000 fighters. And the other species? Elena asked. Colonel Morrison smiled as he read from his intelligence reports. The Altarians have begun attacking Zeralian installations in their home system. The Cedian resistance has seized control of 3 major shipyards. Even the normally peaceful Andromedans are refusing to work in Zeralian factories. Elena nodded with satisfaction. The human uprising had proven that the Zeralians could be beaten, and now their entire empire was starting to fall apart. But Elena knew the real test was still to come. The Zeralian High Command had decided that the rebellion had gone too far. They were preparing to launch a final assault on the human strongholds with everything they had left. If the rebels could survive that attack, the war would be won. If they failed, humanity would face extinction. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching from the direction of Zeralian Prime, announced the tactical officer. Estimated strength, over 500 ships. Elena studied the sensor readings. The Zeralian fleet was enormous, carrying the full might of their military. But she was not afraid. The humans had learned much during their months of rebellion, and they had allies now that the Zeralians did not know about. Signal the fleet, Elena ordered. All ships are due. Converge on the coordinates I am transmitting. It is time to finish what we started 50 years ago. The final battle would take place in the Zeralian system, home to the capital world of the Zeralian Empire. Elena had chosen the location carefully. If humanity was going to be free, they needed to strike at the heart of their oppressor's power. The human fleet that approached Zeralian Prime was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Converted cargo ships flew alongside captured Zeralian warships. Industrial vessels bristled with improvised weapons. Even passenger liners had been turned into fighters, their civilian hulls covered with stolen armor plating. Leading the fleet were the most dangerous ships humans had ever built. These were not converted civilian vessels, but purpose-built warships constructed in the secret shipyards the Resistance had built in abandoned asteroid mines. They combined human engineering with captured Zeralian technology to create something new, weapons designed specifically to exploit every weakness in alien defenses. Elena Vasquez, came a transmission from the Zeralian homeworld. I am Supreme Commander Veltash of the Zeralian High Command. You will surrender immediately and accept punishment for your crimes against the Empire. Elena activated her communication system and replied with a voice cold as space. Supreme Commander, I am Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Free Human Fleet. We do not surrender to slavers. We burn them to ash. The battle that followed was the largest space combat in galactic history. More than 800 warships clashed in the space around Zeralian Prime, their weapons lighting up the darkness with deadly energy. But this time, the Zeralians faced an enemy they could not understand or predict. The human fleet did not fight like a traditional military force. Instead, they used every dirty trick, improvised tactic, and unconventional strategy they had learned during 50 years of oppression. Ships that looked like harmless freighters suddenly revealed hidden weapons and struck at Zeralian flanks, Vessels that appeared damaged and defenseless exploded with the force of nuclear bombs when enemy ships came close to investigate. Human fighters swarmed through the alien formations like angry bees, too small and fast for the larger ships to target effectively. Elena watched from her command chair as the battle raged around her. The Xeralians were fighting with desperate fury, knowing that defeat would mean the end of their empire. But they were still following the same rigid tactics that had made them powerful, and those tactics were failing against human creativity. "Their flagship is trying to break through to the planet," reported the tactical officer. Elena studied the display and saw Supreme Commander Veltash's massive dreadnought pushing through the battle toward Xeralian Prime. The alien commander was probably planning to use the planet's surface defenses to protect his ship while he regrouped his forces. "Signal the Special Attack Group," Elena ordered. "Operation Endgame is now active." Hidden among the asteroids around Xeralian Prime, 20 human ships received Elena's signal and began moving toward their target. These vessels looked like ordinary mining ships, but they carried something that would change the war forever. Dr. James Chen had spent the last 6 months working on his greatest creation, a weapon that could destroy an entire planet's defensive systems in one strike. Using captured Xeralian technology and human engineering, he had built devices that could overload the energy grid of any world with the press of a button. "Deployment successful," reported the leader of the Special Attack Group. "All devices are in position around the planet." Elena watched as 20 small objects detached from the mining ships and fell towards Xeralian Prime. They looked harmless enough, like pieces of space debris or damaged satellites. But when they reached the planet's energy grid, they would release an electromagnetic pulse that would shut down every electronic system on the world. "Activate the pulse weapons," Elena commanded. The effect was immediate and devastating. Every defensive battery on Xeralian Prime went dark as their power systems overloaded. The planetary shields collapsed, leaving the world defenseless. Communication networks failed, transportation systems stopped working, and the lights went out in cities across the planet. Supreme Commander Veltash watched in horror as his homeworld was plunged into darkness. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our defenses are the most advanced in the galaxy." Elena's voice came over the communication system, calm and deadly. "You made one mistake, Commander. You taught us how your technology works by forcing us to maintain it. Now we know exactly how to break it." The battle was over. With their homeworld defenseless and their fleet scattered, the remaining Xeralian forces surrendered rather than face complete destruction. Elena ordered her ships to cease fire, but she was not finished with her former masters yet. "Attention, people of Xeralian Prime," Elena broadcast to the planet below. "For 50 years you enslaved humanity and dozens of other species. You treated us as property, worked us like animals, and believed you were superior to all other life in the galaxy." On the planet's surface, millions of Xeralians huddled in their darkened cities, listening to the voice of their former slave. "Today, your armies are ash and your empire is broken," Elena continued. "But we are not like you. We do not believe in slavery or conquest. So here is what will happen. You will release all remaining prisoners from every species you have enslaved. You will pay compensation to the worlds you have damaged, and you will learn to live as equals with the rest of the galaxy, not as masters." Elena looked out at the burning wreckage of the Xeralian fleet drifting through space around their homeworld. "You called us servants because we knew how to fix your machines and build your structures. But we were never your servants. We were engineers, soldiers, scientists, and leaders who were forced to work for you. Now you will see what we can accomplish when we are free to choose our own destiny." In the months that followed, the Xeralian Empire collapsed completely. Species that had been enslaved for centuries threw off their chains and reclaimed their freedom. New governments formed, based on cooperation rather than conquest. Elena established the Free Worlds Alliance, a confederation of species working together as equals. The former slaves became the teachers, sharing their hard-won knowledge of technology and survival with worlds that had never known oppression. As Elena stood on the observation deck of her flagship, looking out at the stars that no longer held terror for humanity, she thought about the long journey that had brought them to this Moment. 50 years of slavery had seemed like an eternity when she was a young girl working in the mines. But those years had also been humanity's greatest education. They had learned patience from having to wait for the right moment to strike. They had learned ingenuity from being forced to work with limited resources. They had learned unity from sharing a common struggle against oppression. Most importantly, they had learned that no species, no matter how advanced or powerful, could remain in control forever if they underestimated the will of those they tried to rule.